נפש אב הרחמה משוך עבדך ארצונה ירוץ עבדך כמו הים ישתחווה הדרה כי ערב לא ידידותה מנופת צוף וחותם אדוני זיו העולם נפשי חולת אהבתה אמנה אלנה רפנה לה בהר עולה נועם זיווה אז תתחזק ותתרפא והייתה לך שפחת עולם Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Good Shabbos. Please, my beloved, reveal yourself. Spread the sukkah of your love over me. May the whole world be illuminated with your glory. Then shall we be glad and rejoice with you. My lover, come quickly, for the time is come. Have compassion for me as in days of old. These are the words of Yedid Nefesh that we just read, one of the many beautiful love poems that we say between God and the Jewish people. And I can't think of a better time for God's sukkah shalomecha, God's sukkah of peace to be spread on us and the world as we welcome Shabbat. So wherever you are tonight, wherever you're joining us from, just take a moment. Breathe in the moment of Shabbat. Breathe out the week. Maybe your boss was riding you. Maybe you hit traffic. Let it go. Welcome Shabbat with us as we begin the Kabbalah Shabbat, Psalm 95, page 11 in our Cedar.
Lechu niranena, lechu niranena, lechu niranena, Adonai. Lechu niranena, lechu niranena, lechu niranena, Adonai. Naria, litzur yishenu nikad mafanav betodah. Naria, litzur yishenu bismirot naria lo. Lechu niranena, lechu niranena, לכו נרננה לאדוני, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. כי הגדול עליהם מלך הגדול על כל אלוהים אשר ידעו. Page 12, the Chatima at the marker. 40 שנה,
40 שנה,
אקוד בדור, ואומר, עם טועה לבבהם, והם לא ידעו, דרכי, together, אשר נשבעתי באפי, יבואון אל מנוחתי. Page 13 is Psalm 96. לאדוני שיחתה, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו, ספרו בגויים כבודו בכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני מעולם מאוד נוראו על כל אלוהים, כי כל אלוהי עמים אלילים, ואדוני שמיים עשה עוד באדר, לפניו עוז ותפארת במיטשו עבו לאדוני, משפחות עמים עבו לאדוני, קראו בעוז עבו לאדוני, כבוד שמו שאו מנחה, ובואו לחצרותיו. יעלו שדי וכל אשר בו, יעלו שדי, איי 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 איי, אז ירננו כל עציה, אז ירננו כל עציה, אז ירננו כל עציה, אז ירננו כל עציה, יעלו שדי כל אשר בו, יעלו שדי, איי 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 איי, לפני אדוני קיווה לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק ועמים באמונתו.
We turn to the bottom of page 16. In just a moment, we're going to read the words, Or Zaru Alat Tzaddik. Light is sown for the righteous, joy for the upright. In the Talmud, the rabbis tell us that life is different when you're a tzaddik, when you're a righteous person. That even after your life is over, you're still considered living. And in contrast, that when you're evil, when you're wicked, when you're a rasha, even when you're alive, you're kind of not. You're not fully alive. You slumber through the world, and you go through it just... You all right there?
All right.
Good. All right.
Not slumbering.
So, joy for the righteous. The great thing about our tradition is the central greatest prophet in our tradition is Moshe. And you will never meet a Moshe that's perfect in our Torah. Moshe is a very imperfect human being and is allowed to have a relationship with God, and it's a great lesson for us. When we think of tzaddik, when we think of righteous, it doesn't mean perfect. It just means doing a little bit better tomorrow than we are today. As Rabbi Nachman of Breslov said, if we're not going to be better tomorrow than we are today, then why have a tomorrow? This is the hope when we pray that we can be better, when we continue, that we can be better tomorrow than we are today. We are going to continue on the bottom of 16 for Or Zarua.
Or Zarua Latzadik Ulishvelev Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik Ulishvelev Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik Ulishvelev Simcha. Ulishvelev Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik Ulishvelev Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik Ulishvelev Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik Ulishvelev Simcha.
We turn now to page. Do you want to do page 20? I know it's not on our list. We'll talk about Moshe and Aaron for a second.
Oh.
Moshe and Aaron among God's priests, and Samuel among those who called upon your divine name, called to you and you answered them. You spoke to them from amidst the cloud. They kept your covenant and the law you gave them. You answered them, God. You were forgiving, God, even as you punished them for the transgressions. Exalt Adonai our God and bow down at God's holy mountain, for Adonai our God is holy.
Moshe v'Aaron b'Kohanav u'Shmuel b'Korei Shmo korim el Adonai v'hu yaneim b'amur anan yidaber alehem Shamru edotav v'chod natan lamo Adonai Eloheinu ata anitam El nosei hayta lahem v'konem al alilotam Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'akodsho Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'akodsho Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
Thanks for indulging me. We turn to page 21 for Psalm 29. We actually have people here this evening. We have some of our students from the Intro to Judaism class are here for their Shabbaton, for their weekend. So I'm going to ask you guys on page 21, Psalm 29, to please rise as we do Mizmor LeDavid.
Mizmor LeDavid, Havu l'Adonai, B'nei Elim, Havu l'Adonai, Kavod va'od, Havu l'Adonai, Kavod Shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai, Behadrat Kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, El Kavod Hirim Adonai al mayim Rabim Kol Adonai, Ba'koach Kol Adonai, Behadai Kol Adonai, Shover Arazim, Ve'yashaber Adonai, Et Arze Havanon, Vayakidem, Kemo Egel, Levanon, Ve'Sion, Kemo Ven Remim, Kemo Ven Remim, Kol Adonai, Chotzet Lavodesh, Kol Adonai, Yachil Midbar, Yachil Adonai, Midbar Kaddish, Kol Adonai, Yachol Ayalon, Vayechesov Yarod, Uvechalom, Kulo Omer Kavod, Kulo Omer Kavod, Adonai Lamabul Yashav, Vayeshev Adonai, Melech Be'olam, Adonai Oz Le'amo Yitein, Adonai Yevorech et Amo Bashalom, Yai 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 Yai
We're going to do Anna Bekoach. You may be seated, by the way. We're going to do, it's so cool to say that. It's so new. Anna Bekoach on page 22.
After a long week of being tied up at work, in meetings and traffic, we prepare to greet Shabbat, the Shabbos bride, by beseeching that these knots that ties up be undone. Beseeching. Ana Bakoa, good lat yimincha, tatir tzura, kabel rina, amcha sogveinu, tareinu nora, Ana Bakoa, good lat yimincha, tatir tzura, kabel rina, amcha sagveinu, tareinu nora. We greet the Shabbos bride on page 23. Lechadodi lekrat kala yavabai 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 b'nei Shabbat mekabela hai 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 lechadodi lekrat kala yavabai 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 b'nei Shabbat mekabela shamo v'zacho v'dibo echad Adonai Echad, U'Shemo Echad, U'Shemo Tiferet V'Litila. Lechadodi lekrat kala yababai 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 P'nei Shabbat Mikabela Hai 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 Lechadodi lekrat kala yababai 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 P'nei Shabbat Mikabela Likrat Shabbat Lechovenecha Ki Mekor HaBeracha Merosh Mikedem Nesucha Sof Ma'aseh B'machshava Tefillah Lechadodi Lekrakala Yababa 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 Pene Shabbat Nikamelav Ay Lechadodi Lekrakala Yababa 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 Pene Shabbat Nikamelav Mikdash Melech Yemelucha Kumitzi'im mitoch ha'hafecha Rav lach shevet b'yemek ha'bacha V'hu yachamol alaychem la V'chatodi lekrakala Yababa 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 Pnei Shabbat Nikabela Lechadodi Lekrakala Yababa 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 Pnei Shabbat Nikabela. Turn to page 25 and we rise to greet the Shabbos bride. The bottom of 25. Boi v'shalom ateret ba'ala Gam b'simcha ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לחדודי לקרקלה יבבה 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 פני שבת נקרא אליו איי 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 לחדודי לקרקלה יבבה 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 פני שבת נקרא אליו.
You may be seated wherever you are. We turn now to page 27 for Psalm 92, the Shabbat Psalm, the Psalm for Shabbat.
Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat Tov lehodot l'Adonai Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat Tov lehodot l'Adonai Ulezamer leshimcha elyon Ulezamer leshimcha elyon Lehagid baboker chastecha Ve'emunacha b'leilot Tzadik katamar yifrach Ke'eretz bavanon yizker Shtulim beveit Adonai Bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu Od yenuvun b'sefa Dershenim v'rananim להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולתה בו עדותיך נאמנו מאוד לבינך נאווה קודש אדוני ליאורך Yami. And that's Kabbalah Shabbat.
Oh, yes, it is. Did I ever tell you about the first time I ever led Kabbalah Shabbat?
I never heard that story.
I was 16 years old. I'd always wanted to lead Kabbalah Shabbat, and I never had the nerve, and I never got up the nerve to do it. And then I went, I was on a 6-week trip to Israel with a youth group called NCSY, which I was a part of as a kid. And I finally decided I'm going to do it on this trip. And the first time I led Kabbalah Shabbat was actually at the Kotel, at the Western Wall. And it was a beautiful moment for me. We had a lot of fun, we had a lot of singing. And it was do you know the word freilich?
Yeah.
So it was very freilich, which is Yiddish for festive and happy and joyful, I think is a great word. I am actually joyful right now because you are going to not have to see me and hear me speak in just a moment. We have a guest speaker this evening, a fourth-year rabbinic student from HUC, from Hebrew Union College. Miriam Hoffman is going to speak. So I'd like to welcome you to our community, which she doesn't need a welcome. You may know her mom, Rabbi Robin. But Miriam, come on up, say a few words.
It's nice to be here. Okay, the camera's here, and there's people around. Okay, great. So I have been dreading the book of Vayikra all year. Every year we read and reread the Torah, parsha by parsha, section by section. And every year I try to think of a different theme with which to focus my reading for that year. I mean, this is an incredible book, but let's be honest, it can get repetitive. And so I try to anchor my reading in something. Yes, the camera, I'm forgetting. This year, I've been trying to understand how each parsha can have a direct impact on my life. Not just what lesson can I learn from this, but something deeper and something more. And I knew that Leviticus was going to be hard, and yet here we are. This weekend we begin the third book. It has a reputation of being the most complicated book of the 5, the most challenging to digest and to understand. This first section is all about sacrifices, korbanot. In the ancient Near East, offering sacrifices to God was how people related to divinity. Whether they were asking for something, showing thanks, or praising God, they would offer a sacrifice. And in this parsha, we learn that there were 5 specific korbanot: a burnt offering, a meal offering, well-being, purgation, and reparation offerings. All of them unique in their purpose, and all of them a sacrificed animal. Judaism has done its due diligence to move away from sacrifice. When the Second Temple fell, the rabbis of Yavne reimagined sacrifices as prayer. In a world without the temple, how could Jews offer praise? In a world without sacrifices, what could the Jews do to communicate with the divine? The rabbis, in their brilliance, pivoted to tefillah shebalev, prayers of the heart. They took the sacrifices commanded of us in the Torah and understood their purpose to give us a new way to dialogue with God. What is the intention behind each korban? What makes each offering different? And how can we continue to offer ourselves when we can no longer offer sacrifices? For the rabbis, this answer was prayer. And that's worked for us for millennia. But tonight, I want to try and reimagine the korbanot with you all. I want us to sit where the rabbis sat when they pivoted to prayer. I don't mean that we should pivot away from prayer, but I want to continue this chain of creativity that the rabbis so beautifully began all those years ago. First of all, let us understand what a korban is. The Hebrew root of this word comes from the root karov, meaning to be close. These offerings don't just bring us closer to God, but they draw God nearer to us. In the anthropomorphic text, we read that God smells the pleasant scent of the offering and eats them with us. God is drawing nearer to us, just as we are drawing near to God. As I think about my own prayer practice, I know that this doesn't always happen. Sometimes, often. Sometimes I am distracted, thinking of other things, worried about what's on my to-do list. But Maimonides says that prayer is only real prayer if we are fully engaged in it. I guess I've wasted a lot of time. But the relationship with God is so important, and I don't think that prayer is our only way to draw close to God and to draw God close to us. So let's look deeper into the different sacrifices of Vayikra. The first is the Olah, the burnt offering. Olah literally means ascension or going up. This offering was burnt completely, not to be used by anybody except God. This is one of the most common offerings, but surprisingly, is not mandatory, like some of the other ones. The Olah represents complete submission and simply expresses a desire to commune with God, plain and simple. Through the various twists and turns of my own life, I try to remember that it all began with God. God created the world for me and for us to live and to be a part of the story of creation. How do I express my desire to commune with God? I try to remember God. It sounds simple and it sounds easy, but it is so hard to remind ourselves to think about God regularly. My Olah offering is to acknowledge God and God's creation as often as I can. Then comes thanks. The Shlamim offering, or in English, whole or peace offering, expresses thanks and gratitude to God for all of our bounty. A portion of the offering is burnt on the altar for God, a portion is given to the Kohanim, and then the rest is eaten by the offerer and their family. Thus, everyone gets a part of this offering, and everyone is a part of the gratitude. I know that when I give gratitude, it is a moment of thanks. I am outside myself for a moment. It usually comes right after this acknowledgement, my Olah offering, and it lasts for a few minutes, maybe a few hours. But then I get distracted and move on. But in this practice of making the korbanot a part of my life, I want to offer a different way to give thanks to God, and that's to share the offering. This is the only offering that people other than the Kohanim are allowed to take part in. They were able to share in gratitude, the people, the Kohanim, and God together. I think that our Shlamim offerings should be similar. Our gratitude needs to be shared. When God made Adam, Adam was lonely. He needed a partner in this world with whom to share life and love and experience the beauty of everything around him. Thus, Eve was created. God is drawn nearer when we share in the beauty of our world, and that is the Shlamim offering. Things get a little bit more complicated with the Chatat and the Asham. The Chatat, the sin offering, is meant to atone for and purge a sin. It is an expression of sorrow for the mistake and a desire to be reconciled with God. This offering was only meant for accidental mistakes, faults of carelessness, not intentional malicious sin. The asham, the guilt offering, was made when there was doubt as to whether or not a person committed the sin. These two sacrifices created a sort of divine safety net for those who erred. When we make mistakes, whether intentional or otherwise, our first reaction is generally of self-defense. We make excuses, we manipulate the situation so that we don't look or feel as bad, especially when we didn't mean to hurt the person or do something wrong. But we still missed the mark. This year, I'm going to try to not be defensive. Whether I meant to hurt someone or not, their feelings are real. If there was a misunderstanding, I want to clear the air, but not at the expense of not hearing them or seeing their full humanity first. God created this world for all of us to experience, and we all experience the good and bad of each other. I believe that our Chatat and Asham offerings are meant to be of proper communication and active listening, not just so that we can fix what we did wrong, But as Martin Buber describes, to see each other as a thou, to see them as a whole person. When we enter into a meaningful relationship with others, mistakes will happen, but that's why we have this divine safety net. God is in us and in our relationships, and only when we see each other is God drawn closer. Vayikra is a hard book to read and understand in the 21st century. Our lives are so completely different from the people in this book that it is hard to see ourselves in these stories. But I hope that we can learn from the rabbis that we have the power and the responsibility to read the Torah with intention and to find ways to communicate with God. How will you draw nearer to God? And how can we draw God nearer to us? Shabbat Shalom.
Well done. Thank you, Erev Rav Hoffman. In a minute, we're going to do the Mourner's Kaddish.
Let me just say that thank you, Miriam, because next week is junior congregation, and I had no idea how I was going to teach any of that, and now you've put me on a nice path, so thank you for that.
All right, good. See, just the natural educator, natural-born educator. Very different movie. It's cool. I can see when it turns, and we're going to do Mourner's Kaddish, which can be found on page 30. In our community this week, we commemorate the archetypes of Salvador Harari and Samuel Schreeman, of Harvey Cohen and Daniel Rochlin, of Dr. Musa Farivar and Lillian Kretschmer-Rifkin, of Rivka Sonberg and Ida Sloan, of Ferengi Shaham and Joseph Zabo, of Molly Kotkin and Evelyn Block, of Hyman Gershon and Geula Durangal, of Joseph Zabo and Emmanuel Yeskel, of Victor Zeev and Muriel Falman, of Rose David and Dr. Sharon Gerstenzang, of Alvin Rosenberg and Jerome Gottlieb, of Marilyn Mott and Lil Jacobson, and of Regina Scheinman. May all of their memories be a blessing. All those in mourning or who have a yahrzeit or would like to say the Kaddish, I invite you to stand wherever you are for the Mourner's Kaddish, and we'll do it together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'ha'agalah uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Leolam Ulmei Olmaya, Yisbarach v'yishtabach v'yispa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal Shmei Dekudesha Berichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen. Before we conclude with the Shalom Aleichem, I just want to do a prayer, a blessing, right? Remember?
This is the
we
right
used
place.
to do this.
You're the right person, and this is the right place.
Well, I'm not going to do this blessing. That's a different one. But we're going to do a prayer, a blessing that we give our children on Friday night. It's traditional on Friday night before we eat to bless our children. Since on the top it says for a son, I'm going to do the one for the son first. And as I explained, should I explain it again, you think?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I give my children blessings. When I give my son, I say Ephraim, Menashe, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and I do the reverse for my daughters. I don't only want my daughters to be like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. I want them to be like Ephraim and Menashe, and I want my son to be like our matriarchs as well. So that's what I'm going to do. So it may look a little different than what you're used to, but that's the explanation for it. So, Yisimchem Elohim Ephraim u'chemenashe u'kesara Rivka Rachel v'Leah. Yisimchein Elohim kesara Rivka Rachel v'Leah u'Ephraim u'chemenashe. And for everybody, Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless and protect you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. May God's face shine upon you, and may God be kind to you or gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's countenance, face be lifted up before you, and may God give you peace. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
May the Lord protect and defend you. No?
Oh.
May God always... No? Okay, we'll do that another time. But Shalom Aleichem?
Sure.
All right, let's do it.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharim, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malchi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachem leshalom, Malachi hashalom, Malachi elyon, Melech Malchi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nile Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sarlem Tzechem L'Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yai, yai, yai. Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Good Shabbos.